Married to Medicine Season 11, Episode 13 Recap. Dr. G sings the blues. It's official. The cast of Married to Medicine finally left Florida. However, they definitely aren't done talking about what happened there. In M2 and Season 11, Episode 13, This Ain't the Playground, the events from Key West continued to plague the group and complicate their path forward. In last week's episode, Phaedra basically walked away from the show and took a private jet straight to the Real Housewives of Atlanta. This week, it becomes clear that there's another cast member on her way out the door. Things aren't looking too sweet for Letitia in this group. What happened in Married to Medicine Season 11, Episode 13? After returning home from the Key West trip, the fallout from the sandbar fight continued when Dr. G dropped a legal threat. Meanwhile, Toya started getting the ball rolling on her Bridgerton-themed party, and Quad opened the doors to her queendom for a girls' night. Keep on reading for the full breakdown of the latest episode of Married to Medicine. Although the ladies have finally made it back to Atlanta, they're still talking about the drama that went down in Key West. Between Quad's argument with Dr. G, King almost throwing hands, and Phaedra fleeing in a private jet, there was a lot to discuss. At the Bush-Harris residence, Toya and Dr. Eugene were talking about all of the fractured relationships in the group. They both felt bad for Dr. Greg and wanted to find a way for everyone to get along. With that in mind, Toya revealed plans for her next big party, a Bridgerton-themed ball to celebrate their anniversary. She said she wanted to invite the entire group. It didn't work at the sandbar, but maybe it will work if they're all dressed up in Regency-era clothing. Elsewhere in Atlanta, Heavenly was sitting in her house, working on a jigsaw puzzle when Quad dropped by. She had a completely different idea about how they move forward. She wanted to focus less on the couples and more on the friendships. To make that happen, Quad revealed plans for a girls' night at her house. However, two people didn't make the guest list. She said that Phaedra felt like a lost cause and Sweet Tea. That's a whole different can of worms. To get the group ready for the Bridgerton party, Toya invited the entire group to a dance rehearsal so they could learn the waltz. It's not a party without a little bit of dancing, and Eugene joked that this would serve in place of the electric slide. Immediately, Toya's vision of using this party to bring everyone together started falling apart. Quad didn't come because she didn't want King to have to be around Greg. Ironically, the Lunsfords didn't come. Dr. Mimi also didn't show up, but for some reason her husband did. Does anyone else feel like he's been a bigger part of the show than she has? Plus, Toya randomly invited Anila Seja and her husband to the dance rehearsal. They call them anytime they need a few extra bodies to fill in a scene. Toya passed around invitations to her party, and then Contessa dropped the bomb that we heard teased in the mid-season trailer. She said that Dr. G filed a restraining order because of King's attempted assault. In reaction to that news, Dr. Heavenly said exactly what everyone at home was thinking. This sounds crazy as hell. The M2M producers had Toya working overtime this week. In another scene, she met up with Sweet Tea and Mimi to get more details on this supposed restraining order. Unfortunately, Tea didn't offer much information. Letitia didn't clarify if there was a restraining order or what exactly happened. Mrs. Lunsford said that was her husband's story to tell. When Toya asked what the cop said, she hit back with an even stranger reply. "That's my business," Sweet Tea said, as if this whole thing wasn't being filmed for reality TV. With every question Toya asked, Sweet Tea deflected it back to Greg. After witnessing that tense, closed-door conversation in last week's episode, the whole vibe with them just feels off. They aren't open to coexisting with Quad and King, especially after getting law enforcement involved. Toya wanted to know if Sweet Tea felt like she could move forward with the group. Is there a place for her in this friend circle? Even Sweet Tea doesn't seem to know. Dr. G says King charged at him like a maniac, every episode of M2M is guaranteed to give you at least one belly laugh. This scene with Greg, Scott, and Eugen did it this week. The three doctors got together for some bro time, and Dr. G decided this was the time to show off his singing skills. As soon as Greg sat down, he started whining about how nobody checked on him after Key West. He said that as if his wife wasn't by his side the whole time, but everyone knows a man who is this level of needy. When the guy started asking him about the alleged restraining order, he admitted that he called the cops and was trying to press battery charges, even though King didn't touch him. Greg said, "Why wouldn't I? The man came charging at me like a maniac." In a confessional, Greg continued to say that taking legal action was the only way to defend himself from King. He said that if convicted, Quad's new man could face up to 90 days in jail. Then, things took a turn. Dr. G said that after getting back from Key West, he felt inspired to go into the studio and pour out his feelings about what happened. He pulled out a Bluetooth speaker and pressed play on the worst song ever heard on television. Eugene and Scott couldn't help but laugh as Dr. Greg screeched, "Set me free. I got to be free from this bullshit asterisk." A girls' night with Miss Quad is promised. Quad invited all of the ladies over to her enormous home for a poolside party. He evenly shut the party down when she showed up debuting a brand new red hair color. She strutted in and said, "I walk like my coochie good, don't I?" For the party, Quad had two rules. Rule number 1, you have to stop at the bar and get a drink on the way in. That's easy. Rule number 2, there's no talking about the past. We know that's nearly impossible with this group. With Sweet Tea and Phaedra left off the guest list, the ladies were able to have a future-focused conversation about how to move forward. Everyone from season 11 won't be included. Toya and Mimi filled the ladies in on their conversation with T. Toya said it didn't seem like Letitia was ready to move forward, and she felt disappointed that she didn't take any accountability for the drama in Key West. With that said, Toya said that she was choosing Quad over Sweet Tea. It's a far cry from where the ladies were in season 10 when they were pushing Quad away and allegedly having secret meetings about getting her kicked off the show. Phaedra wants nothing to do with them too, and during the final moments of the episode, we saw Dr. Jackie drop by Phaedra's house to try to convince her to come to Toya's party. Phaedra couldn't have been colder. Dr. Jackie was like, "Will you still come to Toya's event?" Phaedra quickly replied, "I don't want to be around y'all." She can't make herself any clearer. She's done with this show, and we can't help but wonder if she already signed on for REOA season 16 at this point. Either way, she said the situation with bringing Apollo on the trip was the last straw. Dr. Jackie couldn't wrap her head around this, and honestly, neither can we. If Phaedra knew Apollo was coming, and she knew that Chake was friends with Apollo, how is this everyone else's fault? In Dr. Jackie's eyes, it seemed like Phaedra was running away from a problem that she caused. Regardless, Phaedra said she's done with this group. "Go home, Jackie." "I don't think there's any moving forward for me," Phaedra admitted. "I'm just being honest."